trust says on the bill, from boom to bust, may give a thrill, it can steal your life, dominate your goals, make a trouble and strife.
Hi there, Johnny here from jonnylipshamstudios.co.uk, and welcome to episode 3 of the Paper Deity mixing series, mixing with Jonny Lipsham. Hope everyone's doing well and you've had a good week in between this Thursday and last Thursday. So we're going to get into the mix proper today. So we're going to hit the ground running, and we're going to be working over here predominantly on these red bus channels. And then as we get into the next couple of videos, we will move on down the line over towards this direction. So we're not going to be listening to the vocal for at least a video or two. Certainly at least for one, maybe for two. We'll see how we go. So we are going to mute the vocal bus because we don't want to hear it, because we're going to focus on just getting the band balanced and sounding fantastic. And then once we've got to that point, then we can start, we'll mute the BVs as well. Once we get to the point of having the band all balanced and sounding fantastic in mono and in stereo, then we will bring the backing vocals and the lead vocals into play. And by that point, we should be heading in the general direction of the final home straight for this mix. And we'll be getting into ambient effects like reverbs and delays and that kind of stuff at that point. So today we're going to start over here with the percussion and the drums, and maybe a little bit of the bass as well. We'll get into that. So let's get started. So we are going to hit the mono button in a minute, but first of all, we're going to hear what the band sounds like. And we're both basically going to be focusing on this final chorus because everything is in at this point. It's the loudest part of the song. So we'll loop ourselves around this section whilst we are dialing in these tones. Should be pretty cool and pretty straightforward, hopefully. All right, so let's listen to it in stereo first of all, and then we'll flip it out to mono and we'll get to work on the percussion and the drums. We're going to, most of all, mix in context. So I will not be using the solo button very much, if at all, in the course of this mixing series. And there's a very good reason for that, because nobody ever hears anything in solo. You don't hear the solo vocal isolated. You don't hear the bass guitar isolated when you're listening to a record. Everything is in context. So essentially, the most important thing is that everything sounds fantastic in context with everything else. Even if it sounds a little weird and a little unusual on its own, that's okay. We're not concerned with how it sounds on its own. We are concerned with how it sounds in context. So that's the most important kind of thing to note here before we get started. All right, let's get into it. So we're going to basically just get into EQ and compression on the percussion, which should only take a matter of just a few minutes because, well, it's just light percussion, so there's not really a whole lot to do. All right, let's get into it. Let's remind ourselves what this song sounds like so far. Alrighty, so let's get into the percussion now. We basically just want to try and bring out the tambourine in particular, and there are some hand claps which you may be able to hear just about on beat 4. If we actually solo up the percussion itself, you should be able to hear that. Yeah, these are on beat 2 and 4 in this chorus. In the previous choruses, it's just beat 4. So what we want to do is we want to bring out the very top end for the tambourine and bring out some of the mids for those hand claps, and then everything else can just be rolled off. So let's get to work. Let's get the Pro EQ in here, because I think that's what we'll use. And we'll probably use some other plugins as we go down the line. So let's just get this going. So we definitely want a high pass filter. And we want to roll off quite a lot of this. So let's just do that. All right, let's see what that's like in context. Alrighty, definitely got that tambourine coming through, and the hand claps are there. They're a little bit hidden by the snare drum at the moment, but we'll get to that in a wee while. But they are definitely there now. So that's cool, and that only took just a few minutes, and we probably just want a little bit of light compression, so I'm not going to go for anything analog particularly right now. I'm just going to grab the compressor, and we'll lose that because we've already high passed, so we don't need to worry about that. All right, so let's get into this here, and I'm liking the attack to be quite slow, and maybe we'll keep it middle just now. We'll just see what that's going to sound like. Alrighty, think we've got that looking good. And sounding good, happy with the EQ. Yeah, I'm happy with those. Happy with the amount of compression. We're only doing a couple of dB on this. And I have sped up the release just a little bit. And I'm keeping the attack at about 30 milliseconds. And the threshold pulled back quite a bit. And we've got quite a sharp knee. But that's okay. Maybe we can soften this up just a little bit. And I think that should work fine. I'm just going to do one quick review. Lovely. Okay, let's move on to the drums. Now we're shaping the overall drum tone here. Because we're doing this on the buses. Excuse me. So we're just going to be shaping the overall drum sound. So that's all of the drum set, the overheads, the room mics, the works. So what we're going to do here is I am actually going to go with, the Pro EQ again. Because I want to get a little bit surgical here. With the drums, I want to get a little bit surgical about what I do around about 200 to get some beef out the snare drum and that kind of stuff. So I'm automatically just going to put the high pass filter around about 44. Okay, let's get going with this. Okay, I'm happy with that for now. I will probably revisit when I get down to the drums stem and the overhead stem here as well. I'll revisit those and do some more precise EQ over here. But I'm kind of happy with the overall shape of the drum sound at the moment. So let's go and get some compression going on. Now for this, I think I will go for the fat channel. And I think I'm probably going to go for a little bit of the FET compressor. I really like this FET compressor. It's very, very good. I did a shootout a long time ago with Dave Vignola where we took I think the Universal Audio and the Waves and the PreSonus 1176 style compressors, and we compared them with each other. And this actually compared very favorably with the Waves in particular. Not as good as the Universal Audio, but certainly compared very favorably with the Waves 1176 compressors. So this is really good. So we're going to dial in some compression here on the drums. Let's go. Alrighty, I'm just going to do another little review here. I'm fairly happy with this. I just want to have another listen. Alright, I think we'll leave that as is. I've experimented a little bit with different attack and release times and settled on a fast-ish, a very fast-ish release actually. And I mean, I say fast, you've got to bear in mind that the 1176 is fast anyway. So you know, you have like 0.02 milliseconds or 0.8 milliseconds. So kind of at the slowest it's 0.8 and at the fastest it's 0.02 milliseconds. So it's super fast even at its slowest setting. So I've got this at its slowest setting, and then I've got probably about 40 or so milliseconds on the release there, and keeping it at 4:1. I'm happy with it just now, but I may come back and review once I get into the individual channels down the line. But for where it is right now, I'm relatively happy. Okay, so we can move on to the bass guitar, and we can check what those are going to come in like. I have already put in some Guitar Rig 5s on the guitars. We'll get onto those perhaps later in this video maybe, or maybe in the next one. And I can show you kind of what I did there, because I'm going to EQ and compress these a little bit further at the bus level as we go. So let's go and get our bass going. Let's just have a listen to what we've got so far. And then I can decide what I'm going to do with this bass. I'm certainly going to bring in Guitar Rig 5, I would think. So let's go and get that set up. Where is it? Here it is. And it's got a bass amp preset on this. So let's go for fingered 1. And we'll dial that in from there. So let's have a listen. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit on the dark side. Okay, I'm liking the sound of that. We maybe just need to compress this just a wee bit. So what am I going to go for this time? I think I'm actually just going to go with the compressor, the native compressor. And we'll dial this in. Course, the next trick really with the bass is to pull it all the way back and then dial it in slowly with the volume fader, so we make sure that we're not completely overcooking the bass and making it too heavy. So let's try that. Let's pull it all the way down and then we'll gradually fade it up. Alright, so we made some progress here, and I think that sounds pretty good. Let's hit the mono button. Not that it really is going to make a whole lot of difference right now, because all we've done really is just sculpt a little bit of the EQ and on the percussion, the drums, and the bass. Really the time where mixing in mono for this mix is going to be really crucial is when we start getting onto the guitars and the keyboards and the horns and stuff, where there's lots of stuff panned about. And I want to make sure when I get to that point that having stuff panned about isn't going to mean I'm overlooking some frequency masking between the different guitars or the different keyboard instruments and that kind of thing. So that's where really mixing in mono is going to be absolutely crucial, so that we make sure that we get the best separation we can possibly get. Excuse me, from an EQ point of view. So let's just do a quick check in mono actually, and just make sure that the EQ and the compression settings we dialed in sound good in mono. And then in the next video, when we get onto guitars and keyboards, we will be more specifically mixing in mono. All right, let's check this out. Okay, I think we have that starting to take shape and starting to sound good. So next week we will get into the guitars and the keyboards and maybe even the horns before we start getting into dialing in the tenor sax solo as well, which we've been listening to quite a bit. But on the next video we'll probably have the tenor sax layout, so we can just focus on the rhythm section and get those dialed in. So we'll be getting onto the 3 guitar parts, the Hammond and the Rhodes, and the horn section, the 2-piece horn section, the tenor and trumpet horn section. And then once we've done that, we've mostly finished doing our bus mixing, and we'll get down to these individual channels and just have a listen and see if there are any issues that are kind of raising their head, wanting to be corrected. And that will probably include going into these guitar channels individually and doing some complementary EQ to separate these guys out, and certainly we'll be doing that in mono. So we'll shape the overall guitar tone over here, and it might even be that we just end up just doing guitars for the entire video next week. So that's where we'll start anyway, and we'll see if we can actually get onto keyboards. Hopefully we can, but we'll see how quickly we can get the guitar tone overall and then the individual guitars over here dialed in mono, so that we get nice separation between the 3 different guitars. So there we go. I hope you have found this informative and helpful and useful. If you have, please hit the subscribe button, and also if you have found this useful, then certainly do hit the thumbs up like button. I would appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you know when the next video is coming up, and go get the stems. Go get the stems to this song so that you can mix along with me. That would be very, very cool if you do that. And I think you'll just learn this approach to mixing a lot more thoroughly if you try it out for yourself using the very stems that I'm using. And I'm happy for you to put this song into your portfolio so that you can attract clients to your mixing business. Happy for you to do that. Just ensure that you credit me, Jonny Lipsham, as the artist and that kind of thing. That would be cool if you did that. And other than that, it just remains for me to say thanks for watching, and I hope you found this useful. And I've lost my mouse pointer. All right, so thanks very much, folks. Sorry about the ending there. And I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
In God we trust, says on the bill. From boom to bust, make it a thrill. It can steal your life.